Hey guys, so I'm coming at you on a very gray, gloomy, overcast day. It's been very rainy today, and it's got me feeling a little bit low energy, but I'm gonna try to turn that around by talking about something a little bit brighter and more fun. I'm gonna be sharing my top 5 drugstore eyeshadow palettes for spring. I am so ready for spring. Once we turned that Valentine's Day corner, I was just like, all right, it's time for the bright, colorful springtime looks. So that's what I've been feeling lately, and I've been realizing lately that I have a lot of great spring and summer appropriate color stories within my collection, and it just so happens that a lot of those palettes are drugstore. And then I also have one kind of indie brand honorable mention to share at the end. It's not quite drugstore, but I still wanted to share it because it's so perfect for spring. So let's go ahead and start with the palette that I am wearing on my eyes today. This is actually my most recent discovery. It is not new to the market. I think it's been out for maybe even a couple of years at this point, but it is new to my collection, and it's the Flower Beauty Jungle Lights palette. So this has been on my radar for a while. It is an all shimmer palette, which is totally up my alley. I love shimmer eyeshadows, and I was realizing that I actually didn't have any all shimmer palettes in my collection, and I've really been into these kind of foiled, sparkly, metallic shadows lately, and that is exactly what these shades are. So when I was placing an order on Ulta's website recently, I was just picking up a few replacements, and then I was just kind of browsing as you do on Ulta's site before I made my purchase, and I was just drawn once again to this palette, and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go ahead and pull the trigger and buy this because it just seems like such a me palette, and I'm so glad that I did. I absolutely love this. These are incredibly creamy. So these are cream shadows, similar to my old favorite discontinued e.l.f. long-lasting lustrous eyeshadows. Those are the little like potted single eyeshadows. Similar formula to that. Kind of like a ColourPop Super Shock shadow, but not quite. These are even more like true cream shadows to me. I just think that these colors are perfect for spring. Today I have this shade Anaconda on my lid, and that makes me think of this song. I'm gonna try not to burst out into song right now. So I have that all over my lid, and then a little bit of this light kind of champagne color called Paradise in my inner corner, and then I blended out my crease with my Wet n Wild Rosé Champagne blush. I've been using that as my crease color for like every eyeshadow look lately. I've also done a couple of looks with this coral shade called Tiger Lily all over my eyelid. I've been really into like oranges and corals and peaches on my eyes. I just think those are so fun, especially flattering on blue eyes. I just love this palette. It's 6 amazing, super pigmented, super creamy shadows, and these are the kinds of shadows that you want to apply with your fingers for sure. They're really not the kind of shadows that are going to pick up on a brush. They're not really meant to be. They're like true cream foiled shadows. So it is slightly expensive for the drugstore. It's about $18, but I feel like it's so worth the price. Like this feels like high-end quality here. So I think the $18 price tag is very fair. And of course, you know, try to get it on sale if you can, but wow. Next, for a kind of underrated couple of palettes. I feel like all of these are pretty underrated though. This is the Profusion Mauves palette, and the reason why I feel like this is perfect for spring is because it has these beautiful soft pinks, and this has been the kind of color that I've been in the mood for recently, especially around Valentine's Day. I did like a Valentine's Day look with this palette. Perfect for Valentine's Day, but really perfect for all of spring, especially with these pastel pink colors. And then this palette is really perfect for year-round. I think it's also a great fall palette with these cranberry tones. But something about those lighter mauves and pinks really does scream spring to me. And I think if you are a mauve lover like myself, you cannot go wrong with this palette. Especially the shimmers in here wow me every time. They are so creamy feeling. Another palette that I think is perfect for spring and summer from Profusion is their Spectrum palette. Now, I have gone so back and forth on this palette. There have been times where I have come so close to decluttering this because these are not like pressed pigment level of quality. Some of these shades are definitely lacking in pigmentation, especially this shade, the orange right here. That's the one that I struggle with the most. Super sheer. You're seeing like a bright pigmented orange in the pan, but the other day I used this as like my crease color and I got like a pastel peach, which was pretty. Don't get me wrong, I love that kind of color on my lid, but It's not necessarily what you see is what you get, the same way that the Mauves palette is, so I don't think this is their best work. I know I've heard amazing things about most Profusion palettes. This is not the best one, so you're probably sitting there like, Sarah, why are you recommending this palette if you don't actually think it's the best that Profusion has to offer? Well, despite some of the shades being a little bit lackluster in terms of pigmentation, I think that this is a great colorful palette if you are someone who doesn't wear colors very often. It's only $5, so you're not throwing out a ton of money for shadows that you know you're probably not going to wear too often. Also, if you're new to color, it may be a little bit less intimidating for you knowing that these shadows are not going to be just incredibly bright and overbearing on your eyelids. You can slowly build them up. It's not going to give you like opaque neon colors, but they're really fun colors. I'm going to pop a few pictures on the screen of looks that I've done recently. Recently, I did a look with Marigold all over my lid and the orange shade Beat kind of in my crease. And I used my NYX glitter primer actually as a base for the yellow, because even though you would think that that primer is only meant for glitters and shimmers, it actually is just a great tacky base to make any eyeshadow pop, and I felt like I got so much more pigmentation out of that color. So that's my tip. Honestly, if you have any shadows in your collection that you feel like need a little bit of help, go invest the $6 in the NYX glitter primer, or I think there's also a $3 glitter primer from e.l.f. that I've heard is great as well. It's a very small investment and it's going to give you so much more mileage out of your eyeshadows. I don't like to tell you that you like need to go buy things very often, and you don't need it, but it is such a useful product to have on hand. So that primer can really honestly make any of these shadows pop even more. I've also done a look in the past where I put just kind of like a sheer wash of that lime green in my outer corner, and that was it. It was a very different look for me, but I thought that was so fun. You could pretty much do that with any of these colors. They also would be great as like a soft winged liner. So I think if you're someone that uses colorful eyeshadows all the time and you want super, super pigmented, bright, fully opaque colors, you're probably not gonna like this palette. But for someone like me, or somebody that, you know, you're just kind of starting to play around with colorful eyeshadow, I think this is a great starter palette for that. It's so funny because there have been so many times where I've been so on the verge of decluttering this, and I'm so glad that I haven't, because lately I've really fallen back in love with it. And if you end up loving any of these shades but you want something even more pigmented, you could invest in a single kind of down the road. But this is just a great way to kind of play around, experiment with colors without like committing to an expensive eyeshadow palette. I mean, $5. That's a good deal. Another palette that I love in the spring, I remember last spring wearing this non-stop in like March and April, especially around like St. Patrick's Day time. This is the e.l.f. Earth and Ocean palette. This is one of my favorite palettes that I own. And what I've realized after trying a few of their 18 pan palettes, the formula of this one is actually much better than some of their older 18 pan palettes. I've also had Opposites Attract and New Classics, and I've actually decluttered both of those. They were good, but the formula of this one is leaps and bounds better than those. So, and this one was the most recent one to come out, I think, of the three. So I think that they really did improve their formula between those palettes and this one. If you've tried either of those and you weren't wowed by them, I would say don't be scared off from trying this one, because I do think it is much better. Many of these shades even outperform high-end shadows. And once again, I think this is a great palette for somebody who likes to stick to neutral shadows, but maybe you're wanting to branch out a little bit into some different colors. This is a fantastic place to start because you do have some nice neutral browns and taupes to ground the palette, but you're also getting some really interesting shades of blue and green and even yellow. And the thing that I love about this is all of the blue and green shades in here are actually really unique. Like I have actually quite a few blues in my collection, but I feel like these blues all stand out as something that I don't have elsewhere in my makeup collection. And so you're getting a lot of variety within those color families, and also they show up true to color. I will say some of these pastel blues are a tiny bit sheer, and I think it's just because they are so pastel that they almost can kind of blend away. Even on my skin, I have pretty fair skin. But once again, maybe try it with a NYX glitter primer or like a white base like the NYX Jumbo Milk Pencil, something like that to make them pop a little bit. But even after having this in my collection for probably like a year and a half now, I still feel like it adds so much to my collection. I haven't gotten tired of it, and I just don't feel like there's much out there like this. I feel like it still really stands out to me as a very unique and versatile palette, so highly recommend that. All right, my fifth drugstore palette is a very specific color story, but this is one that is just so perfect for the spring. I know I'm going to be wearing this so much this season. It's the ColourPop Miss Bliss palette. Now, it's kind of a one-trick pony because you've got your kind of soft pinks and then your peaches and corals, so you could do really one of three looks. You could do an all peach look, an all pink look, or a mix of the two, but they're all really within that pastel peachy pink color family. So if you aren't really into those kinds of shades, you probably wouldn't find this super valuable to your collection, but for me, those are two of my favorite shades to wear, so it makes sense for me to have a palette dedicated to those colors. The only thing is it does contain a pressed glitter. That's like my one gripe. I'm just afraid to use those on my eyes because they can apparently like cut your eye, which just makes me cringe even just saying that. Some people are brave enough to use those. I am not one of those people. I would just say if you are going to use that, make sure to remove it with tape to try to prevent it from going down the drain, since I know apparently those are also not very environmentally friendly to wash down the drain. Another thing that you could use that for is as like a nail polish topper. I think that could be really pretty. Haven't tried it myself, but there are ways to get use out of that. But just know, like, if you are really not a fan of pressed glitters and you feel like that is just a waste of a pan in a palette, you know, maybe skip this one. But I absolutely adore this palette and these shades. They are so blendable. The mattes are a little bit dusty. I don't mind that because I just feel like they blend in so quickly that it's almost just shocking how quickly they blend out. And part of that I think is just because it is such a soft formula, but if you're not a fan of a lot of like powdery kick up, you might not be a fan of those. But I have just been so excited to reach for this palette so far this spring. It's not even spring yet technically, but it's already spring in my head at least. So now for my honorable mention. I had to mention these even though you can't buy them at the drugstore. It is an indie brand, but I have been loving these single shadows from Klarity Kosmetics. If this spring or summer you're wanting to get into colorful eyeshadows, a great place to start is just with some magnetic singles like these. These are unbelievable. I recently bought 7 of them. And I am glad that I did. Now I want more. You barely graze your finger on there and you will have the most pigmented swatch you've ever seen. The mattes especially, they are like pressed pigment quality. So if the Profusion Spectrum palette didn't quite sound like it would be giving you enough pigmentation, may I suggest picking up a few singles from Klarity because these are no joke. I think my favorite so far is the shade Pretty Little Liar. This is so beautiful, just dusted all over the lid. And then I really like topping that with the shade Playboy. Now, Playboy is the only one that I'm not in love with, really just because it is so flaky. I do get a lot of fallout with this, so I think this is one that I need to stick to just using over a glitter primer. Because that one, it is beautiful, and it's like this beautiful transformer shade that you could put over any of these and it'll just give it the most beautiful foiled finish, but it is so flaky. I recently did a look with Hot Cheeto all over my lid. So pretty. I know it looks, it might look a little intimidating if you're not used to bright colors like this, and to me, when I first got it, I was like, that's so pretty, but am I really gonna wear this? But actually, orange eyeshadow, I've learned recently, is super flattering. I mean, it's a pretty bright color, but it's really, really flattering on blue eyes. I feel like it makes my eyes look so blue. So if you have blue eyes, or even if you just like the color orange, you gotta try an orange eye look. Orange, peach, coral, any of those colors. They could be a lot more flattering than you might think. I'm so happy with those. They retail for about $7 a piece. I think some of the foiled ones are a little bit more, but pretty good price if you just want to add a few like bright, fun colors to your collection, or neutral colors. They've got some beautiful neutrals as well. So worth the price. Like, these should be way more expensive than they are. And one thing I will note though is that these pans are actually much bigger than your standard single magnetic eyeshadow. Like, let me show you. This is a ColourPop single. This is a Klarity single. So almost like double the size. Let's see. Oh wow, these are so huge. This ColourPop one is 1.5 grams. This one is 5 grams. So big difference. I mean, you're getting a ton of bang for your buck. Keep that in mind though, they do take up more space than your average single. And I actually ended up just buying one of their magnetic palettes with my order. I think this one was on sale for like $4 anyway. And I'm glad that I did, because they definitely needed and deserved their own. dedicated palette. So amazing, amazing formula. And I haven't mentioned those on my channel yet, but I just wanted to let you know. They are so good, so, so good. And Klarity is a Black-owned brand as well. And that way, especially if you already have a lot of eyeshadows in your collection, you can kind of build your own palette, customize according to what you actually need. That way you're not getting any overlap with shades you already have. So those are my top 5, really top 6 eyeshadow palettes for the spring and summer. I think I'm going to be wearing these a lot throughout just the warmer months. I've just been really in the mood for colorful eyeshadow lately, and I'm excited to play with these palettes. And you know, none of these actually are new to the market, so a lot of you may already have some of these in your collection, and if so, great time to pull them out, shop your stash. Also, you know, my channel really is about enjoying what you have, and so I never want you guys to feel like you have to go out and buy these palettes. If you have any similar like fun spring colorful palettes in your collection, hopefully it inspired you to pull those out as well and have some fun with them. But if you are in the market for a new palette, hopefully this gave you some nice kind of more affordable ideas. But that is it for today's video. If you enjoyed it, I'd love it if you would give it a thumbs up. That helps me out a lot. And also subscribe to my channel if you've not already. I upload 2 to 3 videos a week, so hopefully I will see you again very soon, and I will talk to you later. Bye.